Welcome to the Public Voice Salon. My name is John Bredin. We're a progressive dialogue on culture, politics, and the critical issues of our time. And today we have the great honor of broadcasting our show from the home of Edith Kurzweil. Edith Kurzweil was the editor of Partisan Review, which is probably the most important magazine ever in the intellectual history of the United States. This magazine had a 60-year run. It was founded in the 1930s by Edith's husband, William Phillips. And we're just, again, it's such a delight and honor to have Edith on our show, given what's happening in our society today with the sort of, dumbing down of intellectual discourse. We've criticized this a lot on our show, and we're trying to get back to substantive issues and discussing. And the thing about Partisan Review was that you had an equal interest in literature and politics. And Edith, talk a little bit about, again, the legacy of Partisan Review today and what your thoughts are on the state of our intellectual culture in America at this time.
Well, you mentioned before that there are other magazines, and you asked me whether they're like Partisan Review. But they're not, because our culture is different now. At the time when they started it, it was during the Depression. It was in William Phillips was a student, a graduate student, that is, at NYU, and his teacher was Sidney Hook. And when William was, he told me that when he was talking about how badly things are, Sidney said to go around the corner there to the John Reed Club, and you'll meet other artists and writers. So William did, and there he met Philip Roth. They were very different people, but they both were very intelligent and very interested in literature. And they started Partisan Review. Now, Partisan Review is on the 4th floor of the building owned by the Communist Party, and the leaders of the party were on the 9th floor. So William told a story that the leaders, that is secretary used to be called, top of the American Communist Party, invited them upstairs to talk. And they were told, you talk here honestly, but not to the masses. You don't go downstairs with what we're talking about. And then in 1936, I think, around then, when they started the Popular Front, the two, Roth and Phillips, questioned how can you make such a quick turn? Here we were fighting the socialists, and now suddenly we are with the socialists. And they couldn't give a good answer. And at one point then, the secretary said, I have it right here in my right-hand pocket, the letter from Moscow. And that was when they realized, did not talk to each other immediately about it, that they were against what was going on in America, but they didn't want to go as far as going to being controlled by the Communist Party, by Moscow. So the magazine was stopped, and then they started it again, and they had a big editorial essentially saying that we're independent and we're going to publish the good writers from wherever they come. It's quality that's important, and they didn't think that this would last very long. But before they knew it, they got articles and poems from all kinds of people. So in the first issue, they had Delmore Schwartz writing about responsibilities. and all kinds of other people. I can look at.
I just want to give our public viewing audience some historical perspective, too, on what's going on here, given the fact that these are very complex issues. You know, for example, Marxism at one time, it was something that was very viable. A lot of people were into Marxism before people found out Stalin, how awful he was, you know, and then people sort of turned away from it, and what happened was Partisan Review then took that turn away from the hardcore Marxist, you know. Yes, this magazine, it's an incredible magazine. For 60 years, this has been the formative magazine that 68 years. If you were an intellectual person in America, this is what you read. This was the formative magazine. There's this wonderful memorial edition that was put out in 2003 after William Phillips passed away, and some of the people who contributed: Helen Frankenheller, Cynthia Ozick, Doris Lessing, Norman Podhoretz. And I want to read a little excerpt from something Cynthia Ozick said, because it puts in perspective how powerful this magazine was, and also William, your ex-husband, who you were married to. You married William in 1995. You were his second wife, yes. and so you were exposed to all this incredible culture. Here's what Cynthia Ozick wrote in her journal when she was a student at NYU. She wrote this in 1946. Okay, attached to a candy store, the newsstand, copies of Partisan Review, the Table of the Gods, Gene Stafford, Mary McCarthy, Elizabeth Hardwick, Irving Stone, Delmore Schwartz, Alfred Kazin, Clement Greenberg, the great art critic, Stephen Spender, William Phillips, John Berryman, Saul Bellow, Philip Rauh, Rondell Jarrell, Simone de Beauvoir, Carl Shapiro, George Orwell. I don't know a single one of these names, but I feel their small conflagration flaming in the gray street, the succulent hotness of their promise. I mean to penetrate every one of them. Since all the money I have is my subway fare, 2 nickels, I don't buy a copy. The price of Partisan in 1946 is 50 cents. It will be years and years before I am smart enough, worldly enough, to read Alfred Kazin and Mary McCarthy. And then she says this: what if I had been so unlucky as never to have known William Phillips at all? I would have missed seeing Shelley Plain. I would have missed seeing one of the luminaries of our generation, of several generations. Not to have known William Phillips at all would mean going all one's days without encountering the Phillips wit, grit, honesty, and tenacity. It would mean going all one's life without having stood before the mind that created the political, literary, and intellectual culture that shaped who we are and how we think. Now, this is an incredible testimony to what William, your husband, did. And I want to just ask you, Phil, here's a question now. Because you have a magazine like Partisan Review, and obviously it's going to get contentious because people have different views and opinions and stuff like that. And people said that William liked to argue, but he didn't, to a point he argued. He was also very calm and reasonable. And yes, it must have taken an amazing amount of character to hold that ship together and keep that going forward for 60 years. What, in your estimation, since you were married to William, what was the secret of his success with Partisan Review?
Well, for one thing, he played no games. He was totally honest. There was an integrity that you rarely find, and that somehow is not in the culture now, because now you can't get ahead unless you're playing the game, whatever the game happens to be. But Partisan Review was never in the mainstream. I mean, it was, every intellectual knew about it, yes, and read it.
Yes.
At its heyday, it printed 12,000 copies.
Oh my goodness!
But then when there was a survey made, I forget what year it was, where they said every copy was read by 11 people at least.
Oh my!
So it was something that was passed on. and people waited for it to come out to see what they would say. The other thing is, and this goes to your other remark, is there one like it? No, there isn't, simply because...
What about The Nation? Would The Nation magazine be considered? Or?
Whether it's The Nation or Dissent or Commentary, or they have a certain line. They believe in something, and you'll only read far left-wing stuff in The Nation, in Dissent, although Irving Howe was a friend.
Yes.
They used to, William and me, we went out to dinner with Irving's wife and myself.
Wow.
They would argue, but they were friends. But they were arguments over issues. They were not personal arguments.
Wow.
I think this is something Jean Goodhart reminded me. William would burst out with statements that were to the point. There was one time we were at a big party at Louis and Rose Kozer's, and there were mosquitoes outside, and the lights were turned off, and there were the intellectuals. There were also people, friends on the Cape, who were not great thinkers. And so William turned to me and he said, and his voice was louder than he realized it was, and he said, now we had to hear all these people, now we have to see them.
Oh my goodness.
He always made comments of that sort. So people watched what William would say. When there was a party anywhere, somehow William would find a corner and sit, and before you knew it, a lot of people would be around him. And talk to him.
Oh my goodness.
There were some women, some poets, who would talk to William, and I probably was introduced 8 or 10 times to the same person, and she would immediately turn back to William and leave me on the side, because William was the attraction.
Oh my goodness. Did you ever get jealous of this?
No.
Okay.
No, I took it for granted.
Because you were going home with William anyway. Oh my goodness.
But that was... No, the thing I'm trying to say is this, that people like to know what William thought.
Yes.
And he always went to the essence of things. He said of Saul Bellow that he goes to how did he put it, the essence of irony, and he had a marvelous sense of irony, but that was talking about himself. William too did.
You know, today, Claudia and I were on our way over today. We were on 42nd Street, walking by the New York Times building, and then there's the Nederlander Theater, and there's a play there called Newsies, which I don't know anything about it, but it had, as a banner, it said, "Seize the Day." And I said to Claudia, I said, that's the name of a Saul Bellow novel. I said, and do you know who introduced Saul Bellow to the world? She said, who? Because I've been doing my homework. I've been studying up on Partisan Review. She said it was. I said it was Partisan Review. You were the first to publish Saul Bellow. What was Saul Bellow like?
Oh, I liked Saul. Actually, in the end, when I went to, William was no longer able to go up to Boston, and I really took care of the magazine. And when I got up to, and I was teaching at Rutgers and then at the Delphi, and I would commute I would go up every Thursday morning.
Rutgers in Newark or in New Brunswick?
Graduate students in New Brunswick, but mostly I was chair in Newark.
Okay, well, because I teach at Essex County College, which is right next door to Rutgers. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would call Bellow, and Bellow would invite me to dinner.
Oh.
And I realized, of course, what he wanted to know what was going on in New York. And
yes.
After a while, I thought, I can't call up because he invites me to dinner every time. It's as if I'm looking for a free meal.
Oh my! Oh my
But
goodness.
I didn't tell him that, but he was brilliant. Whatever he said had this two-edged thing, and you just didn't. I didn't know. I didn't say this, but I didn't know which way did he mean this.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's so funny. Well, I just finished reading The Actual, which is one of his last novels. Have you read The Actual?
Yes, I have.
Fabulous book. And also,
don't get to the point until the very, very end.
I know. This is an incredible story about the man who has in love with a woman his whole life, and he doesn't. It's actually a 92-year-old billionaire who gets this 70-year-old man, Harry Trellman, together with the long love of his life, who he never gave up the torch for her, and this older man brings them together, and this is an incredible story. But the language is Saul Bellow, and also that Saul Bellow was the hero for Philip Roth. He inspired Philip Roth, who turns 80 this month. Philip Roth. He turns 80 years old, and he stopped writing too. Philip Roth.
I'm not talking about Philip Roth.
No, Philip Roth.
Roth.
Yes.
Oh, Roth.
Yes, Roth.
Yes. Well, yes, he was also a friend. I tried to get him for that lectureship, by the way.
Philip Roth?
For the first one.
Wow.
Absolutely refused.
Really?
He was kidding. We were talking for a half hour maybe, but
oh my goodness.
But he wouldn't go. He doesn't like doing that sort of thing. He just sits and writes.
Wow.
He claims, I don't think he can give up writing.
Oh,
It's too much
right. He said he gave up writing. We'll see what happens.
Yes.
We'll see what. I want to tell a quick story because I think of everything I've read in this wonderful, wonderful edition of Partisan Review about William. The one story that stands out most to me was at a party because it's been said that back in the 40s and 50s, at the time when Partisan Review was at its heyday, if you wanted to know what the intellectuals were thinking in Paris, you went to the cafe. If you wanted to know what the intellectuals were thinking in London, you went to the bars and the clubs. In New York, it was at the parties. In particular, it was the parties in the home of William Phillips, your husband. Yes. This is what it was, So at one of these parties, Irving Kristol was sitting on a couch, and to his left was Mary McCarthy, to his right was Hannah Arendt, and all of a sudden, Diana Trilling pulls a chair up facing them, and now Irving Kristol, he's like amazed at the conversation swirling around him. He doesn't say a word for a whole hour. They said that was the only, which was rare. Irving Kristol liked to talk, and he was just sitting there, and they were just holding forth these ladies about Freud and all the intellectual rages of the time, But what does this still happen in New York, Edith? Do you know of any parties that are going on, or maybe we should create these parties? What do you think?
Well, I would like to create the parties,
okay,
but you can't do it because our society is polarized. The right isn't going to come to the left, and the left isn't going to the right. I mean, what you see in Congress, you see everywhere else as well. But I want to tell you about another one, which, to my mind, is sort of telling. When before the French came to this country at all, the first one who came was Camus. And Camus called up William, and William made a party. And there were about 35, 40 people at that party. And it was interesting, and then towards the end, Camus turned to William, he said, "Now I want to meet the intellectuals of America."
Oh my goodness. He didn't think that was intellectual enough.
So William said, "That's it. They're all here."
They're all here. That's a fabulous story.
Because the French have many.
Right. Yeah, compared to Europe. And that's the other thing, that the Partisan Review helped to bring European culture to the United States.
Well, it did.
And
there was Harold H.J. Kaplan, who arranged for the first issue. And he got together with Sartre, and Sartre told him whom to invite, and that was the first that America knew that there were French intellectuals and what the French were thinking. This was in 1945, because Capi used to be called. He was there with the American Army, and then with the information services that had brought him over. So he knew everybody.
Whenever Sartre or Camus or Simone de Beauvoir came to the United States, their first stop was always the offices of Partisan Review. That's where they would always come here.
Because
Yes.
yes.
Yeah. Yes. Talk a little bit about your biography now, Edith. I'm very interested in the fact that you're born in Austria. You were there when the Anschluss happened, when the Nazis invaded Austria, this horrible, experience, and also Kristallnacht. How did this shape your going forward in terms of, your own politics?
I don't think anything happened directly, but certainly it influenced me. For one thing, I was 13, and I was sent with a children's transport to Belgium. And then I was in a home d'enfants, which was terrible, and then I was in a pensionnat de jeunes filles, and went to southern France, and I was lucky. I was lucky every step of the way. 4 days before the German invasion of Belgium, we got an American visa. It had taken 2 years for our number to come through. So my mother had left on the last boat from Italy. I think it was April 15th, and on the 16th the Italians declared war, and there were no more ships. My father got the last one from Le Havre. He had been interned in France. There are lots of details, and I have written a memoir about it.
Okay.
And you can read that. I'll give it to you.
Thank you.
Then when I came here, I wanted to go to school, and my father felt he had to get on what he called his financial feet, so he sent my mother and me out to work. I worked in millinery shops, and it was scary. You didn't have buildings like this now. You had to do. There were rats and mice in the corridors, and it was awful. So I got insight into that, and I think this experience made me somehow aware of what was going on around me. Then I had what turned out to be a professional advantage. I knew German, French, Italian. So
okay.
So I could do research, but this was much later. But I always looked for the underside of things, and that in some ways is, as I figure it out now, is what attracted William to me.
Because you were strong intellectually, you had to.
I wasn't an intellectual. I learned an awful lot from William. I wasn't part of the intellectual group. I was just. Well, no. What happened also is my husband died, and I had 3 children. And we'd lived in Italy, and I came back to this country. I went back to school, and I had to still get 23 credits for my BA. Then I went to the new school for the masters.
And masters in philosophy?
Sociology.
Okay.
I didn't know exactly what. I somehow let myself go to what interested me. I did decide one thing, though, that I'm not going to do anything I don't like doing.
Good. I agree. Here.
Okay.
I tell my students this also. Discourage them from studying, business and these kind of subjects. I say, get a real education. Study humanities. Philosophy and literature. You could always go into business later on, but there's this sort of banality in our culture now. Everybody's a fashionista. Everything is bottom line money, and we're losing the culture. Don't you think?
Well, what is culture anyway? When you think about it, we're not just losing the culture. We have certain ideas. This is one of the things that bothers me. I mean, I'm for integration and I'm for education, but I don't think you can mix them up. I tell you, because what I have seen in the universities is a dumbing down.
Yes.
And that's upsetting, because each generation learns from the one before.
Right.
And each has already learned less.
Yes.
Now that I'm old,
Yes.
I wish I had known this, that, and the other things. I wish I knew more philosophy than I do.
Oh.
You know, I took a couple of philosophy courses, but it's not enough.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Well, you know, it's interesting that, well, I've seen that you wrote about structuralism. You wrote about this, and you wrote about Freud and feminism as well. Now, thinking about that topic again, feminism, was it difficult to be around such a great intellectual as William and to have your own identity? How did that work? Or
look, I was critical of some of the things the feminists were doing.
okay.
But I was there. I was a graduate student when the movement started.
Oh.
So I felt I was inferior to everybody, and I just listened.
Oh.
And I tried to say, if you think that American men are macho, you ought to see the Europeans.
Okay. Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet Gloria Steinem?
Yes.
Or what was that like? Was that friendly?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, sure. No, I admired what Gloria was doing.
Yes.
Of course. The thing is this, I mean, even your question gets to the point that Partisan was trying to overcome, which is to divide things into before or against. That somehow you have to be able to see what
The shades
what
of
is
gray
good.
and the humanity.
Exactly. Yes.
It's been said that some people said William liked to argue, but other people said that he, especially as he got older, he kind of regretted some of the sharp tone of the early years of the argumentation, that you sort of lose track of the humanity. Did that ring true?
To some extent, yes. But what happened, he wasn't liking to argue. He made a point. And if he had a point to make, then he would upset somebody who didn't like his point. So that's how the arguments happened. Now, to jump a little to when I was there, we could not get political arguments going because people did not come out or did not want to put themselves on paper on how they felt. So that's when I started to organize conferences. And I became pretty good at writing grant proposals. And there's one conference that really made a lot of difference in intellectual life, which was in the early 90s, 91 or 92, I forget. And I organized it at Newark. Was to bring Eastern European writers and American writers together. And I had all of them. The first panel had William as, and I had to convince him to be willing to be the moderator.
So you were the leader of this operation.
Well, yes.
Okay, wow. Oh, right.
So he moderated. And on the first panel we had Miloš and Bellow, Ralph Ellison, and Joseph Brodsky.
Oh my.
I mean, 4 Nobel Prize winners.
Wow. Now, speaking of medal winners, I want to say this. That tell our audience that you were the winner of the National Humanities Medal. This was presented to you by President George Bush. I want to just show the public this, that we are sitting with a woman who has won this top prize in humanities in our country. And tell us a little bit about that, and what was that like?
Well, it was interesting.
Was Bush friendly?
Yes. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you. I'll tell you what happened.
Yes.
Everybody, I was called by the head of the humanities, national humanities, and said it's on such and such a day, and you had to send in the IDs, and I am allowed one escort and 4 guests.
Oh.
So
Was William alive at this time?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Yeah.
And actually, I'll show it to you, the citation. What happened? There's a certain way of proceeding, and you end up in the Oval Office.
Oh my!
And the 2 handsome Marines.
Oh, okay.
Reading, and your family is brought in and brought out again for the next one. I mean, we had 9 people who got it at that time.
Goodness. Wow.
So when I was there, I looked around, and Bush was standing next to me, with his arm around me, and then Barbara on the other side for the photo op.
Okay.
And I couldn't contain myself. I just turned around and didn't know how to say this, but said very hesitantly, Mr. President, I never thought I could be here. I mean, I thought of myself as just a little refugee kid.
Right.
And here I am in the White House.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So he very quickly, he turned to me. He said, neither did I.
Neither did I. That's a great story. Oh, what a wonderful story, Edith. Oh, wow.
And I must say, this loosened up the whole thing. Everybody else in the room started to laugh. And
humor is very important, isn't it? Humor is very important. I'm reading Mikhail Bakhtin now. He was a literary critic, Russian critic, and he talked a lot about this importance of laughter. And he said even before the novel was created, somehow it came out of laughter, and this whole heteroglossia and different cultures mixing. This is incredible. Was there laughter around the Partisan Review? What was it like?
Yes.
Was William, did he have a sense of humor?
Oh, tremendous.
Okay.
Yeah, he picked up on the contradictions of what was going on, and then of course it gets to be funny.
Okay, yes. You can't take this too serious, right? We have to live our lives.
No, and besides, I want to correct something that you said before. It's about Marxism.
Yes.
When they restarted Partisan Review in 1937, they were going to bring together modernism and Marxism.
Right.
So they were anti-Stalinists and anti-communists.
Oh, yes.
But then I also want to remind you that they knew what was going on, that that Russia was controlling the American party. But it was a depression, and many people believed in it and wouldn't give up their belief. And then you had the fellow travelers who weren't part of the party. So that they were really attacked for being against that whole group. So it was, how should I say, it was a very difficult time for them.
Yes.
And then gradually, over the years, when I was listening and not participating much, when somebody was talked about so-and-so, and when did he leave the party? Now, the sooner you left, the smarter you were.
Okay. Right. I want to fast forward a little bit to the 1960s now, Edith, and talk about the New Left, because I have happened to become friendly with Stanley Aronowitz, who was a member of the New Left, and he was with, with Barbara Ehrenreich, and he helped to nurture her, and he was the teacher of Cornell West, and even, the Students for Democratic Society. He was involved with that, and he got in friendly with Marcuse. Now, I know there was sort of a little split with Marcuse and Partisan Review. But what happened with the New Left, and did you feel that was there any way to hold it together, the sort of old left versus new left, and was it becoming too radical, you think? Or did he not tolerate the New Left at all? Or?
Look, I don't think William saw it as the New Left.
Okay.
he was a professor, a teacher, and he sympathized with his students. But he wasn't for the organization of the New Left. And besides, the New Left at the time was, he might have said, stupid.
Okay. Okay.
They didn't know what they were doing, whom they were supporting.
They were disorganized, maybe, or they weren't, because the left started to fall apart, right, in the 60s and 70s. Didn't it become very fractal?
But look, I think there is a confusion there.
Okay.
When you talk of no, I should put it differently. We have a way of naming something after the fact.
Okay.
Okay? I was a student at the New School while all of this was going on. And I had lived in Italy for 8 years. And I knew more about politics. On the other hand, I didn't know where they were coming from because I hadn't been in this country. So I paid attention to it. I must say I got bored when every first 10 minutes of the period at the New School, somebody came in with the question, is there value-free sociology? No, there is no value-free sociology. This was Marx versus Max Weber.
Okay. Okay.
Which was being taught there.
Yes.
And I remember I walked with one professor on 8th Street, and we came in and we ran into one of the leaders at the New School there, who had been asking these questions.
Yes.
And the prof said, well, where are you going now? I'm working in the 8th Street bookstore.
Okay.
And so he said, oh, that's how you make a revolution?
Oh my. My.
And he said, well, no, I'm giving my friends the books for free.
Oh.
So I didn't take it very seriously as a movement, that is.
Wow.
I said movie by mistake. I was thinking.
Well, you said movie. What's interesting now that your father was a big fan of John Wayne and Clark Gable, and you at one time when you were a young gal, you were thinking of being an actress, but you said because you didn't have the acting talent of Shirley Temple and Deanna Durbin, that you said, this is what you said, that instead you'll be a glamorous writer. But you became a writer, you said, but you became a serious writer instead of a glamorous writer. How did you become a writer?
When you get a PhD, if you want tenure any place, as you well know, you have to write a book.
Right.
So I did a study of North Italian entrepreneurs.
Oh.
I was in Italy, I was in Torino at the Agnelli Foundation, and I was touring the country. Anyway, a book came out of that. And then after that was finished, as in fact, by then I knew William Phillips. And I knew him, I was volunteering to read manuscripts in New Brunswick.
Oh, okay.
And I said, I wonder what I should do now. I have to write a book, another book to get tenure. I was teaching at Montclair State College.
I also taught at Montclair State.
You did?
Yes, I've been all around. Yes. Usually I say something wrong, and then they don't invite me back. I have to learn to keep my mouth shut at the faculty meetings.
Well, I don't know. Don't.
Okay, no, don't. All right.
Don't.
Okay, you told me that. I'm going to say Edith said. Okay.
You can't if you keep your mouth shut. That's why you have politically correct stuff. Because everybody keeps their mouth shut.
Everybody's so quiet today. There's a quietism in the society. One thing I read, Edith, this is great. Another story. There was a cafe in Sheridan Square. where everybody used to go, and the coffee and cake was 10 cents. And they would sit for hours, all afternoon, arguing the world, And Claudia and I were at a Starbucks before we came here, the Starbucks across the street, and I just noticed how quiet it is there. There's nobody arguing the world there, and it's full of people, and yet everybody's on their laptop, and there's a disconnection. How can we bring people back together? I think you have a lot of wisdom to offer, Edith.
Well, I think with honesty.
Okay.
I mean, there are many times that has happened to me that I only talk honestly to people, or I don't talk to them.
Oh, wow. Doesn't it get you in trouble, though? Sometimes?
No,
okay.
well,
It's refreshing.
You'd be surprised how many people I find who agree with me, but they won't disagree outside. Because you have a system where if you're in the university and you want to get tenure, you can't upset the people who are going to vote for you.
Wow. Oh, my. Yes.
So people just keep their mouth shut.
Oh, my gosh.
And
Wow.
look, it's easy for me now that I'm retired, but I did it before.
Yes.
Also.
Wow.
And some people appreciated it.
Wow. Well, we consider you the grande dame of intellectual life in America. I'm going to crown you the queen. No, when I saw you at the New School that day, because every year they have the annual William Phillips lecture. You preside over that. You walk in there. It's like
I got the endowment money for it.
You got the endowment money, so there you go. This is the woman who provides that sustenance financially. You walk into the New School, it's like the Red Sea at parts. You deserve that. But we need to hear more of you. And I hope that Charlie Rose, maybe somebody who knows somebody, you should be on these shows. And what do you think of the media today, for example? Do you have what does Edith Kurzweil says? Let's give you marks on like the media, like CNN, CNBC, Fox, shows like that, or Bill Moyers.
I watch them all. I flip around.
Okay.
I get the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal every morning.
Okay.
So I see what they cover or don't cover.
Okay.
And that's how I somehow make judgments. In a way, it's a watered-down version of Partisan Review, of having gotten used to see what does the other side think. I don't know which side I'm on. But
and it's okay to be ambivalent. It's okay to be ambivalent.
I think life is ambivalent.
Right.
I don't think you. I don't know. Look, if you have an ideology, whether it's on the right or on the left, it's impossible to really think clearly. I'm not saying that I can think clearly, but I can weigh things and wonder what is it and what really is going on, and look more in depth into things.
Wow.
I mean, that's what the magazine was about. I started to say before something about that I organized conferences because we couldn't get people to write in a way on the one hand, on the other. When William, by the way, says that when he was given that line, he puts in which hand.
Oh my!
Yeah.
Wow!
But
I wanted to say, Edith, that my intellectual life came later. In my growth. Well, it was actually in my 20s. I became an English major at Fordham University. After jumping around, I was going to be a business major, and I said, "Oh, I don't want to do that." But I took some courses that were helpful. Then I studied history a little bit. But finally, I was an English major, then an education major at NYU. I got my master's in English education. And that was when I started to come around like the New Left, or the vestiges of that are in New York, and discover Aronowitz and these kind of things. So it's a process. And I even see what's interesting about William. He went to City College, he got his BA in philosophy. He didn't complete his master's degree. He studied at NYU.
He got his master's, but he didn't get his.
Oh, okay.
He didn't get his ABD. I mean, he was ABD. He got to the John Reed Club. Look, running Partisan Review, or keeping Partisan Review alive, was
Full-time job.
More than a
Yes.
full-time job.
Right.
Because, writers, for the most part, they would call up and say, when is my piece coming out?
Oh boy.
Which it had to be, but they thought you send in a manuscript and it's in print. But not now with computers, of course, things are totally changing. But at the time, you had to read it, you had to get somebody else's opinion sometimes. If you weren't absolutely sure you wanted this, if it was on some specialty. Then it had to be edited, it had to be copy edited. Not everything that you saw in print was sent in that way by the writer. I mean, often there was rewriting to do. Then you had to go to the printer personally, and you had to do the layout. It was a long,
difficult, yeah.
a long process.
Yes.
To bring out a magazine. Then when William and when Ralph went to Brandeis, he wanted to have a say, but he wasn't there to do anything anymore. So that was another problem between the two of them.
Yeah, because they got along, but then there was some problem there. Rav, they said, was a very, very difficult person to get along with. I mean, I don't know.
Actually, I haven't told that.
Yeah.
After William died, there was this correspondence, a whole big correspondence there, and I thought to myself, now, was Ralph really as bad as William said he was? And I looked at that correspondence between them, back and forth. I didn't get the manuscript, you didn't send it, you made a date to come to New York to a meeting, you didn't come, and so on and so forth. I came to the conclusion that William was right, that Ralph really was, well, Ralph was working for himself. He was putting out Modern Occasions while he was supposedly with Partisan Review. So he was, but he wasn't.
Wow.
And then we had mutual friends. I mean, Dorothea Strauss told me that if you were friends with one, you couldn't be friends with the other.
Oh my goodness.
It was that bad.
Oh my God.
But anyhow, I figured, being William's widow, I cannot publish this.
Yes.
So that.
Well, there's a new word they call frenemies. Frenemy. It's an end and a friend and an enemy at the same time. I have a feeling we're almost out of time, but I want to touch on some topics because we were so privileged to get a whole hour with you, Edith. What do you think of Barack Obama?
I don't know.
Okay, all right. We'll leave it at that. Leave it at
Leave it at that.
What about art? Let's talk about your art encounters lately. Talk about in terms of novels that you've read, or films that you've seen, or paintings. Let's talk about you as an appreciator of art, because Partisan Review has always put culture as well as politics. And one of my critiques of our society and television today, you don't see very much about art, Most of the TV shows are very polemical. They don't talk about culture at all. So what have been your art experiences lately that have excited you?
Look, even before I met William, I was for, and I liked the abstract expressionists.
Okay.
And then William had been a friend of theirs. You see, it wasn't the world wasn't so divided between artists and writers. They would meet at I think in the restaurant, the White Horse Inn or something.
The White Horse Tavern.
That's right.
Okay. And they would all be hanging out together.
I wasn't there. The artists were mostly there, but at the parties there were others. And also, the art world wasn't a money world at the time. I found one letter, two letters of Motherwell's to William, where he writes, "Don't sell this." And the way and then another letter. I'm sorry I was too harsh, but somebody paid over $3,000 for my. For my paintings. I think he's referring to that.
Which one?
Well, that one over there.
Well, maybe later we could look
Motherwell,
around and look at some of the
yes.
art here. This is incredible.
Well, Motherwell made the cover for Partisan Review. I think he must have referred to that because I can't see anything else.
Wow.
He had Helen Frankenthaler told a story that William had a Jackson Pollock, a huge Jackson Pollock painting, which he could have bought for $500.
Oh my God!
But
whoa,
he didn't. He said he didn't have the $500.
Oh my! Oh
So,
my! Wow!
I mean, this was a totally different world.
Wow. It's interesting also, I was just talking about this because the other night, Claudia and I went to Union City, New Jersey, and it had a little art opening there.
Yes.
And it had these wonderful artists, and there are people who couldn't afford to live in Manhattan, you know? And if you go to Newark and in Brooklyn, you know, these are where the artists are. Could a Jackson Pollock even afford to live in a walk-up in Greenwich Village today? So as you're saying, because money has taken over the society, you have to be a finance major in order to live in New York. And I think that creates a dumbing down. What do you think?
I don't think you have to be a major. You have to be a financier.
You have to be a financier, exactly. But you know, and who has time to read anymore? This is another critique I have, because people are overworked, and you know, and with all these responsibilities, who has time to read a novel? Who has time to?
Well, when you're retired, you find the time.
When you retire, that's true. That's true.
If you want to.
Yes.
But all these, as I said before.
Yeah, look at these beautiful paintings that are here.
These are artists. These are artist proofs,
Mm.
which the people sent to him. He said the only one he bought was this Miro.
Oh.
This was Herbert Ferber, his high school friend,
Okay.
and sculptures also.
Can you see the sculptures over there, honey? Is that too much to turn there?
No, you can't. One back there.
Okay, we'll take a quick look here at just some of the art that's in this beautiful apartment. It's okay, honey. And the sculptures over there. We'll take a look at that. Now, Edith, do parties still happen here, or when did that whole party scene? Like when was the last with William? Like when would you say? Like in the 90s? Did it still happen?
The last party, he didn't want parties anymore.
Really? When did this happen?
He had this.
Yeah.
He couldn't walk.
Oh,
we had to have a room.
Okay.
I'll show you the other room where he used to be.
Oh.
And for his 94th birthday, I made a surprise party, which was very difficult because he was in that room.
Oh, yes, yes.
And with balloons and everything else. This little painting over there, Jules Olitsky came.
Okay.
And he told me that I'm unblocked now.
Unblocked.
That is, he had been blocked, and he did this. He did this one, and it's written to William. You can read it. I forget what he said.
That's
His
wonderful.
94th birthday.
Wow.
So yes, day before yesterday there was an opening of Helen Frankenthaler's.
Oh yes.
But the weather was bad, and I didn't go. But I'll be going to the show and not to the opening.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It's at Gagosian.
Gagosian.
Yes.
We'll have to check that out. I also found it very touching and very poignant that toward the end of his life, William, when he was mostly confined to the bed and his eyes were failing, that people would come and read to him. People who, you know, and there was a whole group of people who would come on a regular basis. There was a stack of books near his bed, and he just needed to have literature in his life. And
I figured out why they did, because they didn't get paid. I had some paid readers also.
Okay.
My voice wasn't strong enough for him, so I could read an editorial, but I couldn't hold out for an hour. Anyway, I think they came because William would make his remarks while they were reading.
Oh my goodness, that's.
And then when they were too busy. I mean.
Wow. Edith, final thoughts. We have 1 minute left. This is a legendary woman, Edith Kurzweil, in the intellectual life of our country. She is a queen. She was given the Medal of Humanities by President George Bush, well deserved. And final thoughts to the country on the state of intellectual life and culture and how we can move forward and revive this in America. What do you think?
I think People have to start talking honestly. We need honesty, we need integrity, and this is what they had around Partisan Review. And this is what the arguments were about, because the people who disagreed with one another all had their own positions and were willing to argue for them. People don't argue these days anymore. It's all taken for granted that you're all on one wavelength, which you're not.
Right. We're multifaceted people. We have different perspectives. Edith, thank you so much for being on our show. We always welcome you back and let us know what's happening in your life, and wish you great success in moving forward.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed our dialogue with Edith Kurzweil in her Upper West Side Manhattan apartment, the liberal Upper West Side. We just have enough time to say goodnight now back in our Hoboken apartment, and we hope that you got some enjoyment and enrichment out of this interview with Edith, and that you'll take her advice and be more honest and talk to each other, and try to learn more about this Partisan Review and the amazing impact it had on our cultural life, not only in New York, but in America and the world. From the Public Voice Salon, on behalf of my wife, Claudia, who's filming, I'm John Bredin. Thank you.